will be led in the Pledge of Allegiance by Mr. Wilson. Robert?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Robert. Just a reminder to silence your cell phones if you have not done that. Meeting documents are at the end next to Commissioner Kelly's not there, is he? Commissioner Peckus. Boy, he's going to feel bad. And if you need a listening device, Robert will help you with that. With that, we'll go into routine business.
Item 1 is consider a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Any corrections? If not, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion unanimously passes.
Item 2 is to approve the County Commission minutes of October 1st, 2013.
I'll move the minutes.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. Any corrections or changes? If not, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion unanimously passes.
Item 3 are bills to be paid in the amount of $549,001.28.
Pay the bills.
Thank you.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments? If not, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion unanimously passes.
Item 4 are reports. The Minnehaha County Human Services Report for September 2013 and the Minnehaha County Sheriff's Department Report for September 2013. They have been received and placed on file in the auditor's office. Item 5 is personnel. A is to approve the routine action.
Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
A motion and a second to approve routine action. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion unanimously passes.
There are no application for abatements. There are no notices and requests. There are no planning and zoning notices, and there are no petitions for compromise of lien. The next item is an opportunity for a public comment.
Thank you. Anyone who would like to make comments about anything that's not on the agenda, we would be happy to hear from you currently. Any item that's not on the agenda? If not, we'll go to regular business.
Item number 10 is to issue a proclamation recognizing October 9th through the 13th, 2013 as National 4-H Week in Minnehaha County. Charles Martinell.
Morning, Charles. You'll need to identify yourself and give us your address, both of you.
My name is Chuck Martinell.
Thanks.
My name is Rachel Bonine, and I'm the new halftime
Awesome.
advisor for Minnehaha.
Welcome.
Thank you.
We have a recognition, and Charles, do you want to read that proclamation?
I certainly could. Whereas 4-H is an educational program where members focus on learning by doing with their hearts, heads, hands, and health, and whereas the 4-H program develops critical thinking and problem-solving skills that are sought by the business world and in public service, and whereas 4-H develops lifelong skills, leadership, and citizenship of urban and rural youth, all of which will benefit their families, careers, and communities on a local, state, and national, international level, and whereas 4-H youth are 3.5 times more likely than youth in other programs to be actively involved in community service, and whereas Minnehaha County Commission, the local partner, along with the South Dakota State University, the state partner, and the United States Department of Agriculture, the national partner, encourage the people of Minnehaha County to become involved with the 4-H program, a program that was established by the United States Congress in 1914. Now, therefore, the Minnehaha County Commission recognizes October 9th through the 13th, 2013 as National 4-H Week and declares October 9th, 2013 as Minnehaha County 4-H Day.
Thank you, Chuck. Thank you for everything that what 4-H does for the community and certainly for the agricultural interest of the county, which is still the #1 economic indicator of our community. So, Rachel, do you have a couple of comments that you'd like to make about yourself, as long as we can have time to meet you today?
Okay. I served as the Union County 4-H advisor for the past year, and that was also part-time, and I did keep that position. I have a long history in 4-H. I was a 4-H member in Lincoln County, and I served as a summer intern for 3 summers in Union. I live in Beersford, and on a small family farm, and that's about it.
Well, again, welcome. Thank you. Jeff, do you comment?
Do we need to approve the resolution?
Yes.
I'll make that motion.
We have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the resolution. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion unanimously passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Item 11 is consider a resolution to restore Minnehaha County Tax Deed Number 2562 to previous owner of record, Pam Nelson.
I'm here today to ask you to pass the resolution to restore the tax deed for the 2562. The owners we discovered when we went out and looked at the property were over 70 years old. I think he's 76, she's 76, and he's about 80, over 80. Under the state statute, we cannot take the property if these people are over 70. They get to live in the property until the property is disposed of in any way. And at that point, though, the taxes are due and payable at about 10%. And they also will owe us for any costs that were attributed because they failed to notify us when they were 70. Several years ago, Pennington County had a case where Janet had the treasurer out there, Janet Saylor, had proceeded to take tax deed on the property, only to find out later that the people were over 70 and that she couldn't do it. It went to court, and the court says that you couldn't do it. So we pursued legislation that following year that would allow us to reclaim our costs that went into trying to have the tax sale when we weren't able to. So on our little tax bills now, they say if you're over 70, please notify us. We make every effort to find you on the voter file, send you letters to find out about these things, but it doesn't always work. Frankly, when they get the letter from us and they owe us money, they probably don't open it and don't read it. So, you know, it isn't foolproof, but so we're going to do this, and after you pass this resolution, then Norma will issue a quitclaim deed to the property. So it'll deed it back to them, but all the costs will still stay on the property. Taxes due, the costs of pursuing the tax sale, all those things will still be able to be collected at the time of the sale or the disposal of the property. So if you could support that, I would appreciate it.
Any questions for Pam? Jeff?
Pam, were these folks eligible for the low-income elderly tax freeze?
Well, that's one of the sad things about it. They were. And their taxes would be significantly less because of their age had they applied and known about the program.
And are they then currently going to apply, or?
I don't know.
Okay. Well, I make a motion to support the return of this property.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second to support the resolution. Any other questions for Pam?
I would just thank you, Pam, for looking out for these folks, and it sounds like a tough situation for everybody.
Yeah, I feel really badly that they didn't get the benefit of the freeze. I certainly will talk to them about it. I know that as an association this year, they're pursuing legislation that would say that taxes would have to be current in order to apply for that particular program. So far, that is not law, but they hope to change that.
Unfortunately, Jeff, this happens a little bit more than we think it does when people don't understand or pay attention to those applications, and no matter how much you do or our organization does, it still falls through the cracks on a regular basis. But thank you for your extra work. We have a motion and a second to adopt the resolution. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion unanimously passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 12 is consider a resolution to restore Minnehaha County Tax Deed 2557, 2558, and 2559 to the previous owner of record, Pam Nelson.
This is sort of a different situation. These people have had 4 pieces of property that they owe back taxes on. When we send them letters regularly, we advertise things in the paper. But on 3 of the 4 properties, on 2557, 2558, and 2559, 3 of the 4, we managed to locate all the errors. On the other piece of property that they have, we decided not to. We were notified a few weeks ago by the attorney that represents some stepchildren that also might have claim to this one piece of property. And they also have some issues with the city over cleanup, and so it's been going on for 12 years or so. So we aren't taking that one, but we need to restore this property to these people, and then we'll issue quitclaim deeds.
Okay. So anyone have any questions for Pam? Kirsten, do you have any comments?
Yes, I'm just going to make a comment on why we're doing this. I want to make clear that the treasurer's office did do a search on this. The names of the old owners were still on the property, and it was only because of a communication with their attorney that we became aware that there were some relatives of a deceased heir that had some interest in the property. While I think there's an argument that could be made that we did our due diligence to avoid litigation, and now that they're on notice, I would recommend quit claiming it at this point, but this is clear that the taxes continue to accrue and be due, and if this isn't taken care of, they're on notice now, and next year we will take a tax deed again.
Any other questions for Pam or for Kirsten? If not, looking for a motion.
I would ask another question.
Certainly, go ahead.
Kirsten, in a situation where we take over a property that's dilapidated and is basically a nuisance, are we responsible then for the cleanup on it?
We can be if we take a deed to that property. The complicated part in this particular case is the nuisance property that was referred to, if you're asking about the city's inquiries, could be classified as personal property that's on the premises, and that complicates things. I think there is some liability if we were to keep it on tax deed, but because the process here was a little unclear, that's why we're quit claiming it back. But there is an argument to be made if the tax deed is taken that we become responsible for any nuisance there upon the property. So,
Well, if you remember, we also amended the code several years ago to allow us to seek an abatement, or at least an assessment on the property for any cleanup efforts related to nuisance. So we could go ahead and clean it up, but then we'd attach it to the bill for them to get the property back. So, but remember, Jeff, we had to do that before on a couple of different properties. But, you know, the problem is getting the money back out. We could put a lot of money in this thing and not get it back out. So.
and if I may clarify, in the case of this property, it is within city limits, and so the city nuisance ordinances are controlling here, and they were the ones who were inquiring about, now that the county owns this, when we first took the tax deed, we now expect you to clean it up. So,
Despite the fact that the city's had 12 years to get it cleaned up.
it's been a long time when they first took action on the property. That's
But now,
true.
instantly, we're supposed to fix it.
Yep.
And make a motion to return these properties.
Cindy, did you have a
No, I was
question?
just pointing to John.
Okay.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to restore the county tax deeds for those 3 properties. Any other questions? If not, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion unanimously passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 13 is to reconsider the decision not to concur with the South Dakota Department of Transportation bid award to Swingen Construction in the amount of $719,038.30 for bridge replacement project 50-298-200 from the October 1st commission meeting. DJ Boofy.
Morning, Commissioners. DJ Boothie, Highway Superintendent. On October 1st, last Tuesday, we notified the Department of Transportation of your guys' decision not to concur with their bid award, and they decided to write a letter requesting that we revisit that discussion and decide to concur with that bid award. And we discussed it, I think, kind of at length last week, but if you have any questions, again, this week I can answer them now.
Anybody have any questions for DJ or comments? Commissioner Peckus?
Well, this is all my fault, because I mentioned audaciously that this was a North Dakota firm, and we had 2 Sioux Falls firms that were bidding for this, and they were less than, what, a couple $1,000s. And they were $65,000 over budget, but the Department of Transportation went back to the Code of Federal Regulations and pointed out that we can't have any sort of preference related to whether or not they're in state or out of state. And so with that being said, I'll make the motion to basically approve the bid.
Second.
We We have a motion and a second. Does anyone have any questions for DJ or Kirsten? Commissioner Heiberger?
Just make a comment, and that was that the cost in rebidding in the spring, the cost may go up that high anyway, just with the increased cost of goods, and so it isn't all bad.
I will just make one other comment in the fact that I think the opinion that DJ got originally was from a Department of Transportation staff member, and the Department of Transportation now has withdrawn that opinion because they said the employee didn't have the right to speak on behalf of the department. So I think we just grin and bear it at this point. We do appreciate your extra work, and unfortunately, that's the bidding laws that they're going to stick with, so I think we need to move forward. Any other comments? We have a motion and a second to concur with Department of Transportation's bid award to Swingen Construction. Those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion unanimously passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 14 is to authorize the chairman to sign fingerprinting agreement between Minnehaha County and the city of Sioux Falls. Kristen Trana.
Good morning, I'm Kristen Trana with the Sheriff's Office. About the middle of the summer, we were approached by the city that through budget changes, they were going to be moving around some offices, and how they've done fingerprinting in the past is not how they're going to do pre-employment fingerprinting any longer. And Human Resources for the city didn't feel that they had the time or the space to be able to do it, and they knew that the Sheriff's Office provides that service for the public. So we began conversations with HR to kind of sort out how we might be able to provide that service for them. And through that, we wanted to set up an agreement as far as how we would be paid, be reimbursed for the cost. Some of the expected expenses that we are looking at is that they would like us to have the service available 5 days a week. Now, that would be available for the public as well, but it will be additional staff. Now, what I figured is that with the number of fingerprints that I would expect that we would do for the city from previous years, the agreement should cover that cost, so we shouldn't see any additional cost.
Thank you, Kristen. Commissioner Barth?
So we're looking at hiring an additional person, though?
Part-time,
Okay.
and it would still just be paid out of our part-time staff.
And are we confident that we're putting in all of our costs on this $15? It seems like a pretty minimal cost. Equipment, the building, the air conditioning, heat, electricity, are all those things included in the $15 for this transaction?
It wouldn't have been something that I would have figured directly, but the additional hours that we're figuring are hours that our office would have normally been open. So I don't see that there would be, if there is additional cost, it would not be great. We're looking at the additional hours being times that the building would already be open anyways. And the maintenance on the machine is going to remain the same as far as we pay a maintenance agreement, and that dollar amount is the same no matter how much you use it. So,
Commissioner Heiberger?
Can I just ask Kirsten for your opinion on this contract, please?
Generally, I can just take the sections of it quickly. I would point out in the beginning sections of the contract, it's a 2-year term. We're committed for 2 years until the end of 2015. There is no provision for discontinuing that if we would want to, but it does provide after that annual renewals will be at the consent of both parties. Looking at Section 4 of the contract, there is standard language in there about discriminatory policies and putting this contract under the auspices of the Human Rights Commission. I think this is boilerplate language with all subcontractors that the county deals with, and in this case, or not subcontractors, but contractors. And we are a contractor in this case, so I think that's boilerplate language that's put in there. It does give that Human Rights Commission some determinative power, if valid, over the county in this case, and it allows finding by that body to decrease our fee or allows them to terminate the agreement if certain things happen. I don't think there's any real risk of that. It's boilerplate language, but it is in there. Section 5 of this is a provision that I think is also boilerplate language. there's a general provision in there that if the city's budget goes down generally by a certain percentage, we are agreeing prospectively to accept the fee reduced in that same amount. I doubt that the city's budget will go down in this case, but know that if it does, we'll be forced to accept that lesser fee on a percentage pro rata reduction basis from what they reduced their budget overall. So for example, in the example that they give, if the budget went down 15%, for example, we would be accepting $12.75 instead of $15 for those. And there is no out in that section for us to decide to terminate the agreement if that's unilaterally reduced. Again, I think that's boilerplate language. And then in Section 6, there's some indemnification language. We've talked about indemnification before. We were just agreeing that in all acts, omissions, and errors that may come out of county conduct out of this, that we will agree to indemnify them and hold them harmless. Again, that's pretty much boilerplate language, although I do note that there's no language in there about limiting that to negligent and willful acts. It is all acts, errors, and omissions. So it would include anything that comes out of that, whether we were negligent or willfully wrong or not. So,
Commissioner Barr?
Kirsten, so if we wanted to end the contract, what would be our process?
our process would be to wait 2 years, and when the annual renewal came up, if we couldn't reach new terms, we could say no, otherwise there is no out to it. That I see.
Mr. Chairman, I think this might be not a bad idea, but I think that it needs a little bit more work, and I guess I'm going to suggest that we continue to negotiate and make this come out a little bit better. And if I might be allowed, I'd like to ask Rich a question here. I don't see our auditor, Bob Litz, in attendance, but I wonder if I could ask Rich a question about the costs involved in figuring $15. Is that would your office be able to determine if $15 was adequate compensation for the process and the costs involved?
Well, if we knew all the facts, we probably could come up with some kind of estimation.
Well, I guess that would be my suggestion. Is the auditor here today, or?
He is sick this morning.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions for Kristen or from anyone else? Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion to table this and renegotiate a little bit, working with Kirsten and with the auditor's office.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any comments, any additional comments?
Well, I'm not trying to give more work to Kirsten, but there's a couple things that I don't really agree with in here. For example, in Section 4, they actually have in the second paragraph, if the contractor is guilty of discrimination, well, you're found liable for discrimination. I mean, nobody's getting charged with a crime here, but it might be boilerplate, but lawyers love to wordsmith things, and I don't think we're talking about any prosecutions for discrimination. So I'm not very comfortable with the contract.
Any other comments? Kristen, how many fingerprinting processes do we do?
Currently?
Yeah.
Shoot, I don't have that number in front of me. Remember? I mean, it's been so long since we talked about it. I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
Don't be.
In the narrative, it says the city of Sioux Falls includes between 488 and 509 people per year. Is that the number you're looking for?
No, that would be what we would look at adding on to.
What we do?
Is that something that I could get that information for you and email it all to you?
Well,
I'm sorry
I
that I
think-
don't have it in front of me, and I don't want to make it a guess.
Yeah. I don't want to nickel and dime this thing to death because frankly, I'm not sure exactly what we're talking about dollar-wise. So it would be nice to have all the detail.
Carrie told us before, in any given year, we could add between 50 to 75 people coming and going at the county. So that's really the cost we're dealing with here.
Except for that we do it for the public.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
And so that's actually the number that I don't want to try and take a stab at. Yeah, that would be a pretty accurate. And now we don't
Right.
county doesn't fingerprint every position because it would be cost prohibitive, but.
Right.
Any other comments or We have a motion and a second to table it, correct?
Yes, sir.
Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Vote passes 3-1. I'll vote no. Item 15 is liaison report. Does anyone have any liaison reports? Any new business?
Oh, next week I might be gone. I might be in a trial. So.
Okay.
Are you a defendant?
No, unfortunately, no. We're plaintiffing.
Any old business?
Move
If not,
adjournment into executive session for personnel, legal briefing, and contracts.
and I hope each one of you brought lunch because we will be here for a while. So, do we have a motion to go into exec session for personnel, legal briefing from council and contracts?
Second.
Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion unanimously passes. We'll be back here in 5 minutes.